Okay, recording. Let me move this out of the way. Am I recording this page or am I recording? Yeah, it has to be this page. Okay. So, InDesign is the best software you can get to create layouts. Simple as that. So, layouts of what? Panels, layouts of your portfolio, layouts of a book, these things. Most of the times, if you're mixing images, text, and different ingredients, let's call it a PDF, JPEG, which is an image type, you're mixing also PNGs, but also text of different sizes, text of different fonts, maybe some diagrams of lines and so on. InDesign is the platform to put them all together. Okay, and this here. Okay, so when you start InDesign, is basically, I'm closing that. Say no. You have a platform for to create new files. So new file and open, those are pretty much what you need to know. Let's say you want to do a portfolio, which is a great idea to use InDesign for portfolio. You create new file and it's going to tell you, hey, what size of document you want, no? So that would be the first step here. I'm going to do a portfolio. I would recommend letter size and most probably tabloid, no? So I'm going to go, do I want it to print or I want to do a web of this? I'm going to place it on the web. Maybe you place in your thing on the web and you might want to choose here web. But if not, you're going to use the print, which is the most common, although it's becoming less and less common because we don't like to destroy all of the trees in the planet. No? So we go to print, and all of this is just to say what is the size that you want. You have letter size, that's pretty much a good one. You have tabloid, and once you're in letter, which is probably the one you want to do, you also have orientation, landscape, and portrait. Let's say portrait because it's probably a good way to do a portfolio. You send it and people can go page after page. You can say number of pages, but just so far, you will say create. And here's how it looks. It looks in a way very similar to Illustrator, to Photoshop, and any other Adobe platform. They're the same company and they use the same kind of a style of button creations and even organization of things and so on. On the left side here, you have the action tools, which is I want to select something, I want to create something, I want to draw something. Here's where you do it, action. No? Here on the right side is more of a properties world. I want to know if my line is this thick. I want to know what layers I have, if I can create other layers, the pages, the properties. Okay, so actions, properties. This is the paper that represents the paper space. So basically, this is imagine the paper that you have in front of your eyes once you print it. Okay. He comes here to help. So whatever we created in this paper, on this paper. Okay, so what things can we create? Well, the first thing that is important to know is that we can place on the paper pretty much anything that we want in terms of obviously graphic design. Let's say lines, let's say, ven aquí tú. Let's say images, we place text and so on. So let's go step by step with some of those. Let's say you want to place an image, which is probably one of the most important things. Let me pause this for a second and I'm gonna be with you. Espera, espera. Tú. Pause recording. So, how do we work? There are important actions that we can take, and we have a shortcut. So slowly, as you work more and more with the program, you will know the shortcut. How do we know the shortcut? Well, you can go to the button and just step there for a second, and you will tell you pretty much the shortcut. I know them like V. It basically stands for select tool, which is this one. No, I mean to say, and A, and so on. Okay. We can create shapes, and some of the buttons are quite intuitive. For example, if you want to create a line, por favor, venga. Right. Maybe I get some seconds of freedom here. No, no, permiso, no. Okay, focus, Severino. Line. We can create lines. We can create shapes, ellipse, polygons. We can use the pen tool to draw. We can write down with the text, shortcut T. It's as simple as creating a box and writing down whatever you want. You can select as if you were in a Word document, and you can change some of the properties, the type of font and the size of the font, etc., etc. So that's quite easy to use. Okay. Let me do some lines, but with this in black, I'll explain these things in a second. You create a line here. You create a circle, an ellipse. You can create a star, whatever. You can do all kinds of things, squares. So those are more of the shapes. You can select things, obviously, with the selection tool, V, and you can click on the thing and move it. So you keep the mouse click with the left button and you move it around. You can move the shapes, but you can also move the box that contains the text. You can make the box of the text smaller, so basically it just compresses where the text is. Move things around. When you select anything like a shape, you can also scale it in different ways. You can scale it by pressing, the corner and make it bigger. You can press Shift and then scale it proportionally, which is quite important. You can select the line and also kind of shrink it, and so on. That's the first option of selection, which is V as in victory. But you can press the next one, which is the black arrow, which is A. A is a direct select. Direct select allows you to select a part of an object, a part of a shape. Let's say not the entire shape, but this point only. Then you can move that point. You can move the point of that circle or the tangent of that circle. So then you create these shapes. You can move that point and move that around. Okay, you can also create fillets with these options, which is basically moving this. You can again create different weird shapes and so on. So there are two types of selection: is the entire object and moving and scaling, and then parts of an object. It's just particular points of an object that you can move around. You can move the, can you? No, you can't move the points of a text box. That's a different world, no? So that gives you a lot of possibilities to create any kind of shapes, deforming, and so on. There's also the pen tool, P. Pen tool is basically like the polyline in AutoCAD, let's say. It continues a chain of lines, no? You can deselect by pressing Control and outside, or you just go to selection again, and then you can move the polyline with the direct selection and moving those points. Pen tool is a little tricky and difficult to use at first, but then it's quite useful. You can also, instead of clicking and lifting the finger, that's polyline, you can click, maintain press, and then move around, and that will create a more curvilinear curve. Again, I'm pressing and I keep the left button of the mouse pressed. And what I'm doing basically, without lifting the button, I'm generating the tangent that I want. And then I can move on and forward. You can close any of these shapes, etc., etc. Now notice that, yes.
I'm sorry, what do you use to make it curvy?
Yes, let me delete everything. Pen tool, P.
Yeah.
And you click, and instead of clicking one and lifting, click and lift, click and lift, click and lift, click and lift. What I'm doing here on the bottom is click, and then the next one I click, maintain the button press, and drag.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
You maintain the, you click, maintain, drag, click, maintain, and drag, click, maintain, and drag, click, maintain, and drag, click, maintain, and drag, and then you can do very interesting curvilinear shape. You can accentuate the tangent. That's basically what you do. You can also finish it and create a close curve, no? With the direct tool A, you can still select the different points and change the tangents afterwards. So you can say, well, this I want it less intense or whatever. This one I want to here and move that one over there. So it's editing involved. Okay, polylines and curves are done with the pen tool. Let me create some shapes. Now notice that all of the shapes, you have many, by the way, by pressing on each of the buttons that have a triangle on the bottom right, and then it gives you many other options in the bottom. So there's sub tools, I guess, inside of each tool. Notice that I'm creating everything in blue and very thin line. Obviously, you should have the flexibility of making any colors and fields and so on. And that's in Photoshop, Illustrator, and design is the same. These two things represent the line color and the fill color. Okay, this is fill line. So right now I was drawing everything with blue line, but with no fill. That's what the red line represents. No fill. How to change the color? You double click on the line and then you can change the color. And then when I create another shape or another line, it makes it that color. Okay. You can also double click on
You can do the same thing at the top, or should you just operate? Or it just depends on the person, like the green up top in the box?
Yeah, you can double click also on this box and then say I want it blue. And then the fill of my next shape will be fill the blue with green line. So if I create a, let's say a circle or an ellipse, difficult to see, but that's green line, blue fill, which is precisely what this is saying, no? Does that make sense? Or obviously, you can edit things. So if I go to the select tool, V, and I select, for example, this rectangle, the second I select it, it changes the fill and line to this setting, which is what it is. So after selecting and while selected, I can change the fill, say okay, and then the fill of that object will turn into red. Okay, so I can select it as many times as I want and change the different elements to different colors. Select, etc. You can also say I don't want fill by clicking on this button. It's the apply none. Say I don't want fill, out fill. You want fill, double click, change, okay. You don't want line, you go to the line, apply none. No line, it's a pure fill geometry. That could be with shapes, with anything that is close For example, this curve I created. Let me delete everything else. I can select this guy and it's exactly the same. I can say, give me light blue as a fill. And then maybe you don't want any line. So you say none. There you go, a nice clean geometry. But you might want only a line, but in say none, fill, yes, black line as exterior. Okay, so we can create shapes of different types. We can obviously write text. We can change obviously the font and the color of the text and everything, like if it was a Word document. Well, something very important is to change the type of line. No, so that's also important for our particular business, the line type, thickness, and so on. That will be under properties. Once you have a line, whatever the line is, there's this option stroke values, properties. You can change the weight, thicker, thinner, very thick, whatever it is that you want, you have it there. You can also type the number, 1.5. You can do different changes of how the lines end. You can, some of these settings are not that value, but this is the corner detail, whatever. And then you have also what type of line. So let's say you want to like a dash line, that would be a type of line, or you want a dotted line. Okay, so those are simple things that you can do by simply selecting, going to the strokes and changing the properties. If you have a line made of color, you can also change obviously the thickness. You can change the, you see how the ending caps different ways. You can also, well, if it's a polyline or basically a pen like this, let me get rid of this. You can say that corner to be with this shape, and they will give you a rounded corner, sharp, or fillet. Depends on what you want. No? For lines, you can also do arrows at the end. You can say a square there of whatever size, and then an arrow on the other side. No, that's useful for annotations of a drawing. You can use the pen tool and say, oops, let me get rid of this. And then imagine there's a detail of a drawing and you want to say, sorry, this thing is the, I don't know, the floor. You can go to strokes and you can say arrow and circle, for example. And then you can write a text, write it down here and say floor. You put it maybe here. You enter, maybe you can change the color of that text to the same as that. And then maybe the font of that text can be changed to something a bit more funky, you know, floor. No? So this thing that I'm indicating in the drawing is a floor. No, for example, just a narrow condition. So you can do all kinds of things. This is quite useful in terms of shapes, text. Now think of it as in your portfolio, you would probably want, actually in a portfolio, rarely you're going to have shapes, maybe some rectangles or something, I don't know, but mostly you're going to have text, a lot of text and a lot of images from your projects, renderings and so on. So that's what's important about InDesign, is that in your paper space, you can say file, place. Place is the key, is the clue option here, Control D, because what you can do is start bringing images of any kind. So this is a JPEG, I think. Yeah, so I can say open and I bring it in. There are different ways to bring any image. One is by clicking left button once, and it brings the image at the real scale. So if it's very small, it's low resolution. If it's very big, it's a high resolution. I'm gonna go Control Z, going back. You can also place an image by clicking once, maintaining the button press, and say I want this particular scale. That's fine as well. You can obviously select an image and scale in this. Okay, scale this irregularly, or basically not keeping any proportion of the original image. I go back, Control Z. You can press Shift and then the corner and then scale, keeping proportions intact. There's this thing button in the middle. If you click it by accident, what you're doing is basically shifting the image inside and cropping, using the line as a cropping element. So basically it's almost like if it was a window to the image and you were placing it outside of that window. Okay. So there are many different things you can do. You can also double click and then move and crop and so on. And you can keep proportions and so on. No? So basically you will start moving the image. You can rotate, press Shift for 90 degrees or 45 degrees rotations, which is very useful. And what is great is that if you have a text, like a big text, there are many ways that you can shift the text, fit it in and do things like that. When you select the image, you can say to the image, I want it to be wrapping the text around. So that's quite useful because as you move the image, it starts shifting the text around, which is great for type of portfolio issues. You can make text smaller and then say I want to continue that in a different text here. So that would be the same text. They're connected in a way. Okay, so and you can say I want to explore that one. Oops. By pressing the plus, and then so basically you can break the text in different sections. So you can have one single text that you have in Word, and then you copy paste here, and you don't have to say when am I going to end this, and then it's right here. You just split the window of text, and it continues automatically as you move things around. Everything changes. So text and images are fantastic. What would you need in a portfolio? Obviously, you have renderings. That's all of those are images, but you might have a PDF. So you can also place PDFs. I don't know if I have here. This is here. So this is something I did this winter. This is an Illustrator file, and we will do a lot of this next classes. Don't have this is not charging. It's crazy. Anyway, so Illustrator file, you say open, you bring it in here, and the Illustrator files and PDFs come like blurry and not elegant, but that's just the preview because they're so heavy that InDesign previews these images as low res. But if you actually select right click, display performance high quality, then you will see there's a perfect vector-based drawing. No? So is what we intend to do, at least in our class. Illustrators files, PDF files that are vector-based, PNGs, TIFFs, JPEGs. You can basically throw in here any type of image you want. You will be fine with it. You can obviously work in layers, so then I recommend you do. You can say new layer, say, for example, images, and you can select the images and drag this little box. This is quite important, how you move one object from one layer to another. You drag the little box and you move it there. Then you can turn off that layer and on. And you can create other layers, text, and then select the text and place it under that layer so you can turn it off and on. No. If you have whatever, a geometry, you can create another layer, select it, oops, and drag it into the geometry so you can turn on and off. You can also lock it, obviously, and you can move it and select it. You can also create by clicking on the top of the ruler. If you don't find the ruler, you can go to view, hide rulers or show rulers, and then you can click on the shift button and drag out what is called a guideline. Guidelines are fantastic. They don't print. They're just elements that helps you organize your layouts. You can select them and place them in another layer.
Is that what we would use to make our panels?
Yes, if you go to the panels that we have on Canvas, there's a series of guidelines as well. They're always sync color. I recommend you just lock that layer and so you don't interfere with it. Those are just divisions that you can use to, you can understand them as the separation between one film material and another film material. Guidelines. What else do we have here? I think those are the most important things. Finally, and we can finish with a tricky note. It's this, well, pages. Obviously, a portfolio is not one page, and you don't want to have several InDesigns for a portfolio or for a book. You can add pages, right click, and you can, what is it here? Insert pages by going to the paragraph. You can say, give me 10 pages or 15 or 100. And then you will have all of these pages. If I zoom out, as you can see, So this is great if you have many pages. Also, if you have one single panel, as we're doing. But if you have many pages, very valuable. It's also place them one next to the other one. So you can put, obviously, page numbers. You can do, have a text that starts here and then it goes to the next page. And as I did before, they could be connected. If this appears, that means that this plus, it's actually saying, hey, there's too much text in this box, but I can just click on the plus and extend that text to the other page. And as I move this, notice how the other one grows. It's basically the same text, which is great for different pages. You don't have to have, one paragraph here, another one there off. Every time you have to cut the bottom of one paragraph to take it to the other side, it's a nightmare. So this is fantastic. But now, as I was saying, there's one thing called package, and that's what I'm going to be asking at the end of the semester. It's the file package. So package is going to ask me to save the file, most probably. Save it in the desktop, call it hello. And package, what it does is basically a folder, hello folder. Package, it tells me if there's any problems. It says there's an error, and the error is that there's text outside of the box. What kind of makes sense. I'm gonna go to that folder and see what came out. Hello folder. It creates an InDesign file. It saves it. Creates a PDF of that file. And then the most important is that in a folder called links, it places every single element that I have placed on the panel. So imagine it's a portfolio with, I don't know, 500 images. What it does when you do a package is organize all of the images into one folder called links. So what are the images you have. This is great, and it's a little bit trouble in the beginning if you're not careful. Why? Because you should never lose any of these links. Okay, do not lose these images, do not lose these Illustrator files, do not lose the PDFs. Everything that you place into your InDesign, don't think that it is in that InDesign. It is not. You see it, but what you're seeing is basically a link. It's the memory of something. It's not the something. So what many students do, especially in the beginning of the semester, is upload to Canvas an InDesign file alone. This has no information, has nothing. It doesn't help me at all. I need the InDesign and I need the images. I need that package. I need the links with every single images that are included in the panel. And I
So
think
packaging only pulls the image. And
Sorry?
links. The package button, it only pulls the images from the page.
all of the images, yeah. The text will be in the InDesign file. That's no problem. But the images that you place are actually links. And here's the last thing. I'm going to close this. And I'm going to open the newly created. So I'm opening the hello here, which is reading from the links of the folder. So open hello. Un segundo, guapo. And this is what we have here. Okay, so there's two images. There's this is an Illustrator file, and this is the JPEG. And again, these are calling, or they have the memory of these two images that are in the links folder, this one and this one. Okay, you can see them here. This is one and this is the other one. If I delete, or let me take it out, Control X, and I'm going to put it here. Okay, I'm taking it out of the links folder. It's not there anymore. Look what happens there. You see that? That's an interrogation mark. It's a little small. It's an interrogation mark saying, hey, I don't know. I have a memory of how it looks, but I don't know what it is exactly. You need to help me out. If I go to links here, one of the links, the image has an interrogation. It says missing link. You need to make sure that wherever that image was in the beginning, that it stays there until you do the package. So how do we solve this thing? You can right click, relink. You can search for it, whatever it is, but you can also bring it to the folder of links. I'm going to take it right now. I'm going to take the image, Control X, and Control V to paste, and here it is. And now when I go back to InDesign, there you go, problem solved. Okay. Now, if I try to do a PDF, let me delete this by accident. I delete this, it goes back to interrogation. If I do a PDF of this, which is the last thing I'm going to be talking about, you do an export, print. It will do it, and it will have some image, but it will be low resolution, that particular image that is missing. So you have to make sure that you don't have any errors here. Those errors are related to the text extension, which is not a big deal, but it's also related to the links missing, and that's a big deal. A missing link means that when you do a portfolio, you do your PDF, you're losing the quality of that particular image that you're missing. Un segundito, guapo. Okay, I'm gonna close this thing, the recording.